Welcome to the Better Teams on-demand webinar, Dramatically Improve Your Team Dynamics Using the DISC Model of Communication. In my work with teams, I hear these universal stressors over and over again. There's people who don't get along with each other. There's misunderstandings or misinterpretations amongst the team members. There's conflict, and not the good kind of conflict, the kind that keeps you up at night and gives you headaches and high blood pressure. There's lack of engagement. People are coming to work, checking the box and going home, but they're not really engaged in the work and committed to the passion and the purpose of the team. And finally, a lack of team bond. So just people who aren't really connected to each other, don't have good relationships formed at work. What you're going to learn in this workshop is really going to cover all those things and more, because you're going to learn what are the attributes and preferences of the DISC communication styles, why teams are ripe for miscommunication and what to do about it, how teams can improve communication to be happier and more effective, and finally, what are your options to develop your team using DISC? Bottom line, all of the stressors we talked about on the previous slide really have to do with communication, and that's what this webinar is all about. How do you improve communication on your team? Well, so who am I? You might be wondering. My name is Leanne Rogers, and I'm the founder of Better Teams. I'm a certified professional facilitator. I've been in the leadership training and team meeting facilitation industry for over 20 years now, and I'm a trained DISC facilitator, which is the Everything DISC communication styles assessment that I'll talk more about later. Some of my clients include Mars, Kellogg's, Chick-fil-A, and Urology Centers of Alabama. So that's just a little bit about me. But more importantly, let's jump in and talk about what are these 4 DISC communication styles. So I find these to be foundational knowledge for leaders. And when I share DISC with teams, I see it can instantly transform them because it just gives them a quick and instant way to understand how they can work together better. So DISC was developed by Dr. William Moulton Marston back in 1928. He was studying the emotions of normal people back in a time when everybody was trying to look at what's wrong or what are the challenges people have. He said, let's look at people who are just normal and figure them out. And so his theory has been adapted by many people over the years. And today I'll be sharing with you my version of the DISC model. It's important that you understand there are 4 different communication styles in this model, and they're represented in the circle there on the right. We're all a blend of all 4 styles, so each of us, and as we go through this, you'll see yourself in a little bit in each of these different styles, although we typically have a dominant style. So usually for each of us, there's one of these 4 styles that is dominant for us. It's the one that we most connect to and most represents us, both at work and or at home. So some of the cornerstone principles to keep in mind are that all styles are equally valuable. Each style has strengths. Each style brings something different to the team, and they're all equally important. Your style can also be influenced by other factors. So if you're really stressed, your style might show up differently, or you might find that your style is a little bit different at home than it is at work. And this is often just dependent on the factors and the things going on in our life that can impact that. You'll also see that understanding yourself is the first step to being effective. So it's important to understand what is your style and what are your personal preferences. But more importantly, it's important for you to figure out what are the styles of the people on your team and the people that you work with. Because when you can understand their priorities and needs as far as communication goes, you can then adjust and adapt what you do and how you work with them so that you can build stronger and more productive relationships. So as we jump into talking about DISC, I think it's helpful if you have some people in mind. You're naturally probably going to be thinking about what is my style. What I'd really like you to do, though, is think about someone that you find really challenging to work with. Someone who you think, wow, this person, if I have to work on a team or a project with them, I mean, my blood pressure goes up. I feel really tense and really stressed. I do not look forward to working with them because they're so challenging for me. And then specifically, what is it that they do or they don't do that's so challenging for you? And if you'll pause this webinar for just a minute and write down the name of that person, or at least write down what is the behavior? What is the behavior that they do or don't do that is so challenging for you? Let's talk about each of these different styles, and I'm going to give you an overview first. So at the top of the model, you see the D and the I styles. Both of these styles are reactive and extroverted. And so if you want to think about these styles, they tend to respond very quickly and they tend to talk out loud in meetings. So they think as they talk. So usually you'll see the D's and the I's are the first ones that are going to speak up and talk out at a meeting. On the bottom, you'll see the C's and the S's, who tend to be reflective and introverted. So they tend to think more before they speak. And they typically prefer to form their thoughts and opinions before verbalizing them. So they're a little different. They're going to show up. They're probably going to be less likely to speak out quickly at a meeting because they want to form their thoughts first. On the left side of the model, the D's and the C's are both task focused. So here what we mean is they want to know, what is the goal? What are the metrics? What are the facts? What are the timelines? What are we trying to do here? They are really focused on the task at hand and making sure that it gets accomplished. And then on the right side, we have the opposite of that, the I's and the S's, who are more people focused. They tend to focus more on things like, how are people reacting to this? Are people engaged? Are people getting along? What do people think and feel about this? So they're going to be more focused on the people side. So again, that gives you kind of an overview of what each of the styles is going to be about. And we're going to dig in a little bit deeper here. But it's really important that you remember that each of us has a little bit of all of these styles, even though we're dominant in one. So as we talk about these, you're going to see yourself, again, a little bit in each of these, but think about which is your dominant style, and also be thinking about that person who is so challenging for you. What do you think their dominant style is? Let's start on the upper left with the dominant director, reactive and extroverted and task focused. And I think the name says it all. They like to dominate and they like to direct and move things forward. So the dominant director is very direct and to the point. You always know where they stand, what they're thinking, and how they're feeling. And they're very focused on driving results and driving solutions and getting to the results. So they want to, like, what are we trying to do here? How can we get there? Let's do what we need. Let's move forward and let's get the results done. They also make quick decisions based on gut reactions. So they hear what they need to hear. They've quickly formulated a decision, and then they are ready to move forward. And they're competitive. High D's like to win. They like a challenge, or they like to try to be the best or the fastest, or do something in a new way. So they're definitely competitive. If you think about people who are high D's that are well-known, famous people, you might think of someone like Mark Cuban from the Shark Tank, or Serena Williams, or Madonna, or Kanye West. All four of these people are kind of known for speaking out, being direct, speaking their point, not worrying if they're going to offend anybody, but you always know where they stand, and they're also known for being competitive. So that's the high D, the dominant director. As we move over to the right in the circle, we're going to be talking about the inspiring socializer, the high I, who's reactive and extroverted and people focused. So the high I, or the inspiring socializer, they like to inspire and they like to socialize, right? So that's why the name. And they really enjoy the idea of brainstorming and creating with others. So they like to think out loud and be creative and figure out new ways of doing things. That's fun for them. They also are very focused on the big picture and the future. So they don't get really into the details at all. They don't like to be down in the weeds. They really want to be thinking about what's next and how else could we do this and what's a possibility for the future. And they're really energized by interacting with people as well. So they would much prefer to be on a team or think out loud or collaborate with others than be off working by themselves at their desk. They can be impulsive and spontaneous. So if you ever have something that needs to be done quickly and there's not a lot of time to think it through, if you throw it to a high I, they will probably enjoy the challenge of having to figure something out and think quickly on their feet. High I's that are famous might be people like Ellen DeGeneres or Jimmy Kimmel, Oprah, or Prince Harry. So all of these people are kind of known for being friendly and sociable, people-oriented, connectors, but they like to talk and think, and they typically are kind of fun to be around. That is your inspiring socializer. Next, we're going to move down to the bottom right part of the diagram here with the supportive empathizers, the S's. They are people-focused and reflective and introverted. And so the high S is someone who, again, likes to support the team and is also very empathetic with others. So they do things like they're methodical and they're organized. They really like to look and have methods and organizational systems and processes for doing things to make sure everything's done accurately and done well. They're focused on harmony and status quo. They like peace and they want people to get along and work well together. They want to make sure that everybody's happy, and again, they don't really like anything, people or situations to rock the boat. And they take care of people and tasks. They're the ones who kind of notice what's happening and might see something that everyone else misses and go take care of things behind the scenes. So they don't ask for a lot of attention or acknowledgement here, but they take care of things that need to happen before anybody even realizes it was an issue. They also desire time to process before discussion and action. So unlike the D's and I's, who tend to be pretty impulsive and jump right in and start thinking out loud, S's really want to think first and want a chance to process information, especially if it has to do with a change. S's are a little hard to think of when you think of public people because they don't necessarily want to be in the limelight. They like to be sometimes the person behind the scenes that's making everything work. But if you think of our past president, Jimmy Carter, or Mother Teresa, we've got Gandhi, we've got Princess Di. So all of these people have in common that they're servants to the people. They're there to help and serve and do good, but they didn't necessarily do it for the fame or anybody to say good job to them. They just did it because they felt like it was right, even though they didn't necessarily want to be in the limelight. Let's move on and talk about the cautious thinker, which is in the bottom left-hand quadrant, the C. The cautious thinker is more cautious and they like to think about things. I think of the cautious thinker as being kind of scientific and analytical. They're task focused and they're reflective and introverted. So some things to know about a cautious thinker. They tend to analyze and process information very thoroughly. They really want to look and crunch the numbers and look at lots of different resources and make sure they have everything they need. It's really been looked at it from many different angles before they make a decision. It's important to them that things are accurate and complete. So sometimes they can have analysis paralysis where they just want to keep looking and making it better and making it better and making it better, and they can't feel comfortable that it's done because it could always be better, because it's so important to them that everything is done right. They really like to work alone. S's do as well, although S's like people, but C's really want to be sitting in a cube or sitting at their desk, doing their own thing, working alone and working independently. And they find background information and detail very important. So it's important to them to know the backstory and the history of something. They want to know everything about it because that helps them, again, in their analysis, to have the big picture and the full understanding of what's going on. So they're going to ask you a lot of questions and want a lot of information from you as they process and think about what to do next. So public cautious thinkers, again, this is harder to come up with, but we have people like Bill Gates, or Hermione Granger. Now, she's a character, not a real person from Harry Potter, but she was always very analytical and trying to figure things out and solve problems. We've got Condoleezza Rice and Dr. Spock, another character who didn't really have the people part of him. He wasn't very emotional. In fact, he was not emotional at all, just very scientific and analytical and trying to figure out what to do and how to do it accurately. So this is your cautious thinker. Think back now to that person you were thinking of earlier, who you wrote down, who was challenging for you to work with. Think about the behaviors that you described, the things that they do or don't do that are tough for you to work with. What would you say their style is? And I'll put it back up here so you can take a peek at it. But what do you think they are? What is their dominant style? Again, you might see them in several places because we all are blends of all of these styles. But which style seems to be dominant to you? Which one do you think is their big motivator? Chances are that style is going to be a little bit opposite of yours. So very good chances that whatever your style is, the person who is most challenging for you to work with is often someone who is our opposite because they're doing things so differently than how we are doing things. So that leads us into then why teams are ripe for miscommunication, and then ultimately what can you do about it? Some basic concepts to keep in mind here as we think about how to use the DISC model to make it practical for us in the work world is that similar styles tend to be socially compatible. So we typically choose friends that are similar to us. We have similar DISC styles and communication styles with our friends. However, work task effectiveness is strengthened by mixing different styles. So while we tend to like and enjoy working with people who are similar to us because we like to do things the same way, we are actually more effective when we have a variety of different styles looking at things. And I think that may be obvious, but the reason is because each person is adding something different and a different strength. And one style alone will be missing some of the elements that the other styles bring. So when you mix styles, while it's better for the team effectiveness and getting to a better result or a better product at the end, it can also result in conflict because you have lots of different people wanting to do things in lots of different ways and sometimes challenging each other in how they work together. So while it's a positive thing to have different styles, we have to be aware that conflict can exist so that we can be aware of it and then learn how to prevent that or work through that. So here's a quote. Opposites can attract as in magnetism. So sometimes opposites can be pulled together and it's just a really great combination. Or other times they can explode as an antimatter and be really explosive and difficult to work through. And so what we're going to do is talk about, give you some examples here so you can kind of think about how that might play out at work. So imagine you have a D and you have an S and they're working together on a project. The D is really direct, to the point, speaks their mind. The S is more, let me think about it, likes the status quo, wants people to get along. The D might be like, hurry up and decide already. Let's go. Let's make a decision here. I'm ready. We're dilly-dallying around. And the S might feel pressured by the D. It might feel like, wow, you're not very nice. So they probably won't say you're not very nice. Notice that's a thought bubble, but they might feel hurt or offended that the D is being so direct with them. They may misunderstand that because, again, these styles are polar opposites. Now let's take a look at a different opposite, the C's and the I's. Imagine the C and the I are working together on a project. And the I is kind of jumping into solutions and ready to move forward and starting to brainstorm. The C might think, wow, or say, you're missing some really important data. You're jumping into solutions and wanting to brainstorm, but first we really need to figure out what the problem is and what the goal here is. What are our criteria? What are we trying to do? Or you're way ahead of the game. The I, on the other hand, might be thinking, oh my gosh, see, you are dragging me down. You just want to look at data for days. I am ready to solve this. I am ready to move forward. Let's get creative here. We don't need to spend days and days and days talking about the problem. We know what the problem is. So you can see here how these opposite styles can approach or look at things differently and how they want to communicate and how they want to work through things. At the same time, opposites can be a great combination together. So if you think of the famous opposites of Marge and Homer Simpson, and you can either think they're a great pair or maybe they're not, but Marge is a high S. She's calm and compassionate and kind of bends in and does what she needs to do to make the family work. And Homer's very direct and to the point and competitive and doesn't necessarily think from an emotional side. And so they're kind of a funny combination here, but they often work. And oftentimes the best partnerships at work and at home are opposites because they really balance each other out. The key is being able to talk about it and understand where the different person is coming from and see the value in what the other style brings. So a lot of this is positioning and perspective and how you view the other person and understanding why they're doing what they're doing, and again, seeing the value in it. So a quick interesting note here, since Marge and Homer are married, we often tend to marry our opposite, or at least a different style than us on disc, whether it's marriage or a romantic relationship. And so the old adage, opposites attract, really can play true. While our friends are typically similar to us, our romantic relationships are typically more different than us. So it's just kind of an interesting tip or interesting fact for you. Things to keep in mind that are critical in order for us to be able to work effectively together is these are the conditions that must exist. There's got to be mutual respect. There's got to be mutual trust, and you must be willing to be flexible. Without those things, opposites or even similar styles will have trouble working together. But if you respect each other and trust each other and you're both willing to flex, or at least one person's willing to flex to the other, you will be much more effective together. So how can teams improve communication and be happier and more effective? You may have heard the golden rule. The golden rule is do unto others as you would have others do unto you. And this is a beautiful thought and a beautiful statement. And basically what it's saying is, treat others like you want to be treated. And while that's a beautiful thing to say, when it comes to DISC, that doesn't really work well, because if we treat others like we want to be treated, we may be missing the ball. We may not make them happy. Instead, what we want to practice is what we call the platinum rule, which is a little twist on that, which is do unto others as they would have done unto them. In other words, treat other people like they prefer to be treated. Don't treat them how you want to be treated, treat them how they want to be treated. Again, that's where we have our biggest impact and improve relationships. So it's up to us to choose how we want to plug into others. And it's up to us to decide, I think it's a good point and valuable for me to make a modification here or to adapt my style because it's good for the team or it's good for this relationship. And when we learn to adapt and plug into others, we have much greater influence. They're much more likely to hear us and understand us and align with us because they're hearing it in a way that they like to be communicated. So let's take a look back at the different styles and go through each one. And this time, think about people that you work with who are dominant directors, who are really direct and really to the point. Here are some specific ways that you might think about adapting your behavior to better work with them. One is get straight to your point. Don't meander around, don't give them lots of background information, don't walk in and ask them about their weekend. Just walk in, tell them what they need to know or ask them what you need to ask them and kind of move on with it because they really don't want to just spend lots and lots of time talking about anything. Only take as much time as you need. And so if you only need them for 5 minutes, use that time well and then get out the door. They will appreciate that because these are very driven by time and want to move forward and get things done. Be thick-skinned as well because they can be very direct. So if we can realize they're not trying to hurt our feelings, they're not trying to be mean, they're just speaking their mind, they're just saying what they think, and that's their effort to kind of make the team better, we can realize it's not personal and be thick-skinned when they give us very direct feedback. Or maybe they don't like an idea that we like. And then express your opinions confidently with a D. Especially when you disagree, you don't need to go in softly with a high D. They like and will appreciate and respect it if you will just say what you think back to them. Call it like it is. Tell them you disagree. That will go over well with a high D. Finally, help them look good. Remember, they like to compete. They want to do well. They want to look good in front of others. So anything you can do to help them look good will be very appreciated and will build that relationship. So how about the inspiring socializers? Think about people in your life who you work with who are high I's, sociable, reactive, like to brainstorm, like to talk about their weekend with you. Start conversations by asking them about themselves. So with a high I, you never want to go in and get straight to the point. You always want to go in and build rapport first. How are you doing? How was your weekend? Tell me about your kids. Tell me about your vacation. But do something to kind of build rapport first to make a connection to them because that relationship part is dominant for the high I. And smile and be friendly and sociable. I's really want to be friends with the person that they work with. Listen to them. They think out loud and they like to talk. So you may have to be a little more quiet around a high I and allow them a chance to kind of think out loud and meander around a little bit. That's how they solve things and figure things out. And then give them opportunities to brainstorm and to be creative. High I's really enjoy that, and that's where they excel. So if you're looking for solutions or you're trying to come up with new ways to do things, put a high I on that team. They will really love that and come up with some really wonderful ideas. Now the details and the timelines and the actions, high I's can miss that. So send them that information in writing. Maybe send a follow-up email with the details, the times, the actions that were agreed upon. This can be helpful too because again, those I's might miss those details that are important. So putting it in writing can be helpful to both you and them and improve the product or project that you're working on. Supportive empathizers. How can you work more effective with them? Well, remember, they're warm people. They like peace and they want people to get along. So be warm and personable. Like the high I's, start by building rapport. Walk in and smile, and check in, make a personal connection, ask them about themselves, and again, start that process or start that meeting in a personal way. Remember that they like to have time to process things. So anything you can send them, pre-reads, send them an agenda in advance, give them information to let them have a chance to digest it and prepare their thoughts before you put them on the spot and ask them for their opinion. That will go over very well with them. They will appreciate that. And then notice how they help the team and compliment them privately. So they're going to do a lot of things, little and big, to help the team that they won't ask for attention, but notice them. They do appreciate being noticed, and just compliment them and let them know that you see that. When there is a change, allow them time to process the information and work through it. They will be a little slower to process it because they like the status quo to stay the same. So allow them time to think about it and then talk more about it when you're going through a big change. And then a thing to keep in mind with the S's is that they don't like conflict, so they may not openly tell you that they disagree or don't like what you're saying or have a better idea. And so rather than assume that silence means consent, or assume that they agree with you just because they haven't said they don't, ask them, what might I have missed? Which invites them to tell you what you've missed. Or what might be, do you see any issues with this idea? Again, this invites them in, and they'll be more comfortable giving you that honest feedback that way. Then we get to our cautious thinkers. So think of C's that you work with, people who are more analytical, more scientific, like to work alone. When you see that they are sitting at their desk, deep in thought at their computer, or writing on a piece of paper, don't interrupt them. Don't jump in because they are deep in thought working. And when you go in and you interrupt them, it really loses their train of thought, and they have to almost start all over, and it will really aggravate them. So look for opportunities to find them when they're not busy, or to schedule time with them. They probably would appreciate that much more than an interruption. And so scheduling time is always a good thing. Not only do you want to schedule the time, but you want to be really clear about what it is you want to meet with them about, what you want to accomplish. And just like the S's, give them those pre-reads in that agenda so they can prepare. Now with the high C's, they're very task focused, not on the people, but they're focused on the task. So they don't want to hear about your weekend, or they may not even want to talk about their weekend. Just get straight to the work, be more work focused, be more task focused with them. And then offer context and data and information. If you don't offer it, they're probably going to ask for it, but they would appreciate if you gave it to them up front. So the understanding of why you're doing what you're doing and what has happened before and what the goal would be. But a lot of information and detail is very important, because remember, they're going to look at things from a lot of different angles and want a lot of information. And then provide clear goals and deadlines for them. So if you got something you want, let them know exactly what you need to know and what the deadline is. Because remember, they are going to want to keep making something better and better and better. And so sometimes it's hard for them to finish. So those deadlines can be very important, and a clear goal of what's in scope or what's out of scope might be helpful as well. So going back to that person who you find very challenging to work with, hopefully you have identified what you think their dominant style is. We've just shared some ideas, or I've just shared some ideas with you that you can use to adapt your style. Think of just one thing you could do a little bit differently with that person that might improve the way you communicate with them. So what is one way you can adapt to improve the relationship? Feel free to pause here if you'd like some time to think. As we talk about adapting to people and thinking about what we think people's styles are, and one of the things I love about DISC is that because it's behavior based, we can often figure out what people are, because it's all based on behavioral clues. You don't have to see a written assessment of someone to kind of figure out what their style is. And we need to be very careful not to pigeonhole people. So even if you were to do a workshop with a team and you're like, oh, I know you're a high D, or I know you're a high S, we don't want to always lump them into the characteristics of the S, because remember, we are blends of all of the styles, and we all have the ability and do adapt. So the intention is to make this helpful, to be aware and to adapt, but not to lump people in and not see them in any other way but this rigid way that they only fit with this particular style. So let me give you some examples of that. I am a high I naturally. However, if I'm stressed, my style might show it very differently. And if you're used to working with me and I'm friendly and I'm talkative and I have a good time and I smile a lot, it might really surprise you if you see me show up as a high C. But if I'm stressed because I'm not sure what to do, I'm figuring something out, or something is new to me, I tend to fall back into a high C mode. Get very task focused, ask lots of questions, want lots of information, really want to understand something really thoroughly. So that helps me figure out what to do next. But because it's so different, it can sometimes surprise people that I work with when they see me go into this mode and they think something's wrong. Nothing's wrong. I'm just figuring out how to do things and showing up in a different style. On the other hand, if I'm stressed because I'm short on time or resources and I'm trying to get a whole lot of stuff done really fast, I might show up as more of a D. My emails, instead of being checking in and putting your name and asking you how you're doing or writing some personal note, I might get straight to the point and just ask you a question. And again, I've learned to be careful with that because it's so different than my normal style. People can misinterpret that as I'm being rude or curt or I'm angry or upset. But it's just that I'm stressed or I'm busy or I don't have a lot of time to do the others. And so I share these examples about me because me and you and everyone else, we all show up in different styles from time to time. So even once we learn a dominant style, we have to be flexible with it and not box people. A challenge I have for you is to ask each team member what they want and need from you, how you can communicate more effectively with them. And if you do a DISC workshop, and I'll give you some examples of that in a little bit, but if you do a DISC workshop, it's a great way to learn. And I always find people are very surprised sometimes by what their teammates say. Sometimes you know it, and other times you're like, wow, I did not realize that when I did that, that was probably burdensome for you or bothersome to you. And then we can learn how we can just, again, make little adjustments to how we behave and work in a way that's more effective for all of us. Let's move on into utilizing DISC to help your team, reducing conflicts and improving overall relationships. I'd like to share with you 2 ways that you can introduce your team to DISC. One of them is Team Building in a Box, which is a product I've created, and the other is Everything DISC Assessment. And I'll tell you a little bit more about each of these so you have a better understanding of what some options you have to bring this to your team so your team can start talking about it, start working through it, and start working more effectively together. Team Building in a Box is a workshop kit. It's designed to stimulate rich dialogue among your team about how you all want to communicate with each other. And it's based on a workshop I've been doing for years and years with teams. It's an interactive activity and it involves lots of different props that are kind of fun and make it interesting. There's cards, stickers, and even these wooden meeples, little wooden people meeples. And there's also a lot of thoughtful questions designed and incorporated throughout this workshop to engage your team. At the end of this workshop, your team's going to have a better understanding of how each person prefers to be communicated with, and also a good understanding of just the team as a whole, where the team is strong and maybe where the team might be missing some styles and what the team can do about it. From these conversations and activities, each person is going to walk away with specific actions and ideas for how to improve their relationship with each team member. You will be amazed at how much your team will transform in just a few hours because they now understand each other better. So let me give you a little bit of information about this Team Building in a Box kit. It comes in a kit with it's for up to 10 people, and in it there's a leader's guide, a very detailed leader's guide. It's designed so that anyone can lead a team through this. You don't have to have any knowledge actually of DISC at all. You don't have to be a facilitator. It's just a really simple guide, walks you through exactly what to do to help a team go through this activity. And most people take 2 to 3 hours to do this workshop. So it's a great thing to do in the afternoon or the morning. It's a great tag on to a week-long retreat where you want to do some productive team building with each other. You can, if you want to, add on and do more to it and make it longer, but most people can get it done in 2 to 3 hours. And the kit for 10 people is $389. So it's a really good, effective way to do it. If you don't want to hire a facilitator and you don't want to spend hours and hours developing your own kit, you can buy this. It has everything you need in it to deliver it for 10 people. Once you delivered it with your team, you may have other teams you want to deliver it with, and you can reuse the guide and reuse the cards. All you need to do is repurchase the pieces that the group uses up, because they end up with a poster that they hang up on the wall with their meeples on it, and they all get to walk out with their handouts. So all those pieces can be rebought or repurchased as a refresher kit for $209. So I've had lots of facilitators use this with multiple teams, and after they bought the initial kit, it's only $209 for additional teams of 10. It's a really good deal. So if that's something you're interested in, there's more information and even a video about it, and you can order it directly at www.better-teams.com/teambuilding in a box. Now, I also want to tell you, because some people are thinking probably, well, my team is more than 10 people, or I have a really big group I'd like to take through this. And there are many, many options for larger people. So if you have 16 people or so, you probably just need some additional worksheets and stickers and meeples and all of that. That's just an easy add-on. However, if you have a larger group, let's talk about your options. In this picture, you see a high school that did this, and they had about 75 students. With some modifications, it worked really well. And we used a larger poster and smaller little meeples so they would all fit onto this poster. I had another client who did this workshop with 50 managers, and I worked with her with a little bit of adaptation to how she did it. It went really well. She got rave reviews, and all her managers said they wanted to take it back and do it with their teams. So if you've got more than 10 people and you want to think about options to how to make this work, I've got lots of ideas for you, and I will help you with that. I want you to be successful. Just call me or email me, and we'll figure out the best way to do it, the most cost-effective way to do it for your large team or a group. So that is team building in a box, which is one option, kind of a do-it-yourself, self-guided option. Another option I can offer to you is using the Everything Disc individualized detailed report. So this is an online assessment that you and each person on your team would take individually, and it would give you a detailed report. You'd each walk out with about a 20-page report about yourself that was, highly reliable and valid. And you could use this in conjunction with the team building in a box to have the detailed report, or it can be done by itself. This option is usually delivered as a training class or as a team workshop, either of which I guarantee you it will be engaging and eye-opening. So I particularly like the Wiley brand of disc because it's got the highest degree of validity and reliability of any of the disc profiles. And by the way, in case you're noticing that the I is little here and everywhere else it has been big, it's because the Wiley brand, it's a branding thing. And so the little I is only used when it's specific to a Wiley product, and that's why everything, our team building in a box disc is all capitals, but if you use this assessment, it's a small I. You also need to know, and one of the reasons I signed up and I was trained to use the Everything Disc is there's so many different reports that you can use that make it really neat. So there are, for example, you can get a full team report printed as well. Or if you and I are working on a team together and we want to talk about how we can better work together, once we've both taken the assessment, we can get a report pulled just for you and I. And it will give me advice and tips on how to adapt my style to yours, and it will give you tips and advice on how to adapt your styles to me. And that's included for no additional price once your team has had the assessment. So for a leader to do that with each person on the team, or for teammates to do that with each other, is just really a valuable resource. The assessment itself is $63 a person, and then you can either do individually if you wanted to just test it and try it with me. I'll individually coach you on your assessment and give you feedback and walk you through it for $200. Or what I really hope you'll do is do a team workshop. Get your whole team to do it. Have me come in and facilitate a half day or a full day. We can figure that out for you. But a workshop where the team is not just getting their paper reports, but talking through it. Whether we use, again, team building in a box or something else, really let them kind of play with it and talk through it so that it is very applicable and everybody's got really good ideas and actions that they can take after the workshop. So if you're interested in doing the online assessments, just reach out to me and we'll figure out, again, the best way to do that with your team. So how will you bring this resource to your team? I hope you will in some way or other do that. I'm assuming, if you're still listening, that you find DISC to be a really powerful tool like I do. Please reach out to me and let me know what questions you have or how I can support you with this. I've been using DISC for over 20 years, and it's one of the most powerful tools I have ever used with a team. I've never, ever had a team that didn't go through DISC. They didn't say it was transformational for them. So we focus on the strengths, we focus on the positives, we focus on how each team member can adapt to the other to improve relationships. I just don't know how you can go wrong with that. So again, here are some ways to reach out to me at leanne@better-teams.com, 678-929-team, or the website. But reach out. Let me know what you think about this webinar. Please share it with others if you like it and help me spread the word. And again, I hope we get to work together.